And when I'm not trying out new wigs and cocktail dresses, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Your creative work might look a little different this year, but For Culture grants can still help you put your ideas in motion and share them with King County. Check this out. For Culture is now offering grants in 3 disciplines: arts, heritage, and historic preservation. Apply by April 28th. For more information, go to forculture.org. What's that date again? The deadline to apply for a For Culture grant is April 28th. Are you interested in getting your project financially supported? For Culture wants to support your cultural activities and share them with King County. Do you do creative work in the arts? For Culture is now offering grants in 3 disciplines: arts, heritage, and historic preservation. Apply by April 28th. I have some ideas. For more information, go to forculture.org. As a cultural funding agency for King County, For Culture wants to support your creative work. For more information, go to forculture.org.
Sunday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's K-Fox Night Beat with DJ Nastiness.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This is your Rainier Avenue Radio.world community update on Seattle City Lights Utility Discount Program application. If you are impacted by COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus, access the utility discount application online at seattle.gov/UDP for utility discount program, or call 206-684-3000. That's seattle.gov/UDP or 206-684-3000.
This is Paul Schneiderman, the host of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio. Sports and Stuff is a sports show that focuses on the game day aspects of sports and also the business, policy, legal, and sociological aspects of sports. Tune into Sports and Stuff and listen to my interviews with athletes, authors, administrators, politicians, and others.
Khi nào nên đeo khẩu trang? Hầu như mọi lúc mà bạn đi ra ngoài, như đi cà phê, trên xe buýt, hay đi thăm bố mẹ, khi đi làm, đi dạo buổi trưa trong công viên, hoặc mưa buổi tối trên đường về nhà, hãy đeo khẩu trang trong mọi hoàn cảnh, vì khẩu trang ngăn chặn sự lây lan của COVID-19 và giúp bang Washington mở cửa. Người dân Washington, hãy đeo khẩu trang để mở cửa bang Washington. Hãy truy cập website coronavirus.wa.gov để biết thêm thông tin chi tiết. Thông điệp này do chính phủ bang Washington mang đến cho bạn.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Good afternoon, Rainier Avenue Radio audience. This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique show. It is Earth Day this week, and the station would like me to let you all know about all the different programs we have at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on the lineup for Earth Day today. Today, I have the pleasure of inviting a good friend of mine, Paul Schneiderman. He's an attorney and a PI litigator, a legal analyst, civic and charitable causes supporter, sports and stuff sport radio show host. Please welcome to the show my friend, co-moderator of Judicial Debate, Northwest native, Paul Schneiderman.
Hi, Monique. How you doing?
Good, but you gotta take off the video block so we can all see you.
Okay, well, I got to figure out how to do that, Monique. Just 1 second here. So,
okay, no worries. We can just keep talking.
Okay, let's keep talking. I'll try to figure out how to take off the video deal. So
all
I
right.
told you my technology skills are a little weak.
Sounds good. So, I've known you for a while now, Paul. I think it must have been, 10 years? My daughter is 13 last weekend, so I think I've known you for at least 10 or 11 years, right?
We've known each other a long time, Monique, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you. And I really want to congratulate you on your show. And part of the theme of your show is a show where interesting people talk about interesting stuff. I hope I don't break that streak today.
Oh, absolutely. You've been always a wonderful friend to me, and I really enjoy our connection and our relationship. Why don't you share with our audience a little bit about your history in the Northwest? Were you born and raised here?
I was, Monique. I was born and raised in Northeast Seattle, and I went to Roosevelt High School and attended University of Washington, Seattle U for law school. So my roots are Northwest, and I've lived elsewhere for short periods of time, but most of my life has been in the Seattle area for sure.
And you are a lawyer, but I understand that you have some legal experts in your family as well. Your father was an attorney as well?
You know, I did grow up with a lot of attorneys. My late dad, who died at a young age, was a successful trial attorney, and my late grandfather, my mom's side, was an attorney. And I'll tell you something, my aunt, my mom's side, was also an attorney. Debbie died very young, and she was one of the first women associates in a major Seattle firm, and she was very involved in helping lawyers in transition in their careers. I have a cousin who's an attorney, an uncle, the list goes on. Happens to be a lot of attorneys in the family.
Yeah. What did your father practice in? I mean, I know you said that he was a litigator, but what type of law?
Dad was a prosecutor one time. He handled a lot of personal injury cases, and in general litigation. And he was his law firm was involved in one of the early asbestos cases in the late 70s, early 80s. So I grew up with just being around a lot of attorneys, and I grew up with some very honorable attorneys. So when you hear about the stereotypes of attorneys being sharks and everything, I never really understood that until I became an attorney myself. So I grew up around some very honorable attorneys.
That's great. Yeah, I know that your family has a very strong Northwest roots. There were some stories that I'm going to ask you about later if you're willing to share. But how did you become a lawyer? What made you decide to follow your grandfather and your father's footsteps?
You know, Monique, I just have always enjoyed current events and policy issues. I've always found the law interesting. I actually was never a really, really top student, but I always enjoyed social studies and the law and public policy. So it just kind of became a natural outgrowth of some of my basic interests. That's
cool. Did you go to law school around here?
I went to Seattle U for law school and was admitted as an attorney in 1997. I want to tell you a quick story. I was, and this is inspirational, I think, for a lot of people. When I was a kid growing up, I wasn't the best student, and I had some dyslexic traits and so forth.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I was 16 years old. My parents sent me to a learning specialist. They were concerned about me. This woman looked at my writing samples and said to my parents, "I'm not sure your son's ever going to get through college and maybe not even be admitted to college." Well, many years later, I passed the bar. I got B's in legal writing in law school. I got through college. So I that to me is a story, an example of don't be discouraged by what someone say to you one time. But the so-called learning specialist, anyhow, it was kind of amazing that she told my parents that.
Right. And look how far you've come. I mean, you are an attorney now. You own your own law firm. You're a sport radio show host. You co-moderated judicial debates with me for Rainier Avenue Radio. Well, I would say she might be wrong about this one here.
Well, I don't claim to be a genius or anything, but I think she had a way, way, way underestimated assessment of my future abilities.
Right. Now, I happen to know that you met Larry King, the radio personality legend that recently passed away. Tell us about that encounter.
Monique, that's a fun question. So back in 1986, Larry King had a radio show, and he also had this segment, Open Phone America. So two friends of mine from Roosevelt High School, Paul Bagnulo and Michael Lamb, we went down to see Larry King when he took his then radio show to Seattle. He would sometimes do his show in different cities. So I met Larry. I got my autograph with him. We chatted for a couple minutes. I interacted with Larry online a couple times over the years as well. But I did have a chance to meet him in person, and it was he had a very esteemed career in broadcasting. One thing, Monique, that Larry King has always said is let the guests talk. The show's about the guests, not you. And I can tell you do your interviews like that, but Larry was very critical of a lot of talk shows who he thought made the show way too much about themselves.
Right? Yeah, I kind of learned that from watching him early on. I didn't know too many radio host names, so I watched him actually, believe it or not. And how old were you when he wrote that autograph that I saw on your Twitter page?
Yeah, I was 16 then, and young teenage kid. It was fun to meet him, and we talked about baseball for a minute. I asked him a question during one of his segments, and so it was a quick introduction, but definitely a one of those encounters that I will remember the rest of my life.
Right, and now you're a radio show host, sports and stuff. I think you even name your show. I think he had a show when that article was written. It was something sports or stuff or one of those two words that he also used for his show. And then I kind of saw a little bit of him in you when you do your show as well. Am I right?
It's funny, Monique, you say that. I've tried to incorporate all sorts of different styles, like Leslie Stahl or a little bit of Mike Wallace, although Mike Wallace had much more of a cross-examination style. But I've actually tried to incorporate some different hosts who I've watched over the years, local, national, in my approach. I want to be me, but at the same time, I think I borrowed from all sorts of different hosts, including, like I said, including some local people here too, as well. So.
Well, your show is about sports and stuff. So I know there's a stuff part because I've seen some interesting local celebrities, people on your show. You said Gary Locke was on your show. There was Alan Demowitz. I may have mispronounced his name here. So there are some interesting people.
Yeah, the famous law professor, Alan Dershowitz. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you come to know these people that got on your show?
Monique, I've had a few people come on my show. And by the way, the show name may change. We'll keep a little suspense on that. But right now, it remains sports and stuff. A lot of it, Monique, is just some people I've met that may have a connection to certain guests. A whole bunch of guests, I've just emailed them myself to see if they're interested in coming on. So, I find most people are pretty engaging and willing to talk. My show is CNN or ESPN or a major network show, but I think a lot of people are willing to come on and chat, and I think I've learned that through my experience. Not every person I've invited has been interested in coming on, but a lot of it's just kind of hustling and making an effort to see if someone wants to come on.
Sure, that's what we do, right? Getting the interesting guests to come on the show. So also, I'm curious about an experience that someone else had told me, and I wanted to find out more details, but you didn't share too much more than what I have already heard. But maybe you can share whatever you're willing to share on the show about the time when there was a certain president that came into town and your family had the honor of hosting. What was that about?
I'm trying to think what that was. Family hosting an event. I mean, there's been a couple of events over the years at family homes, Monique, but I'm just not sure. I'm not sure exactly what event you're referring to.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll keep it discreet on the down low. I was told this, but all right. We won't get into that. Let me see what I want to. What's that?
I just don't remember. My mom had an event for James Donaldson, who ran for mayor once, but maybe that's the event. But I don't remember the specific event.
Oh, okay. All right. So how often are you doing your radio show these days?
Monique, I'm trying to do it at least once a week, but it's coming out to probably an average of twice a month. And I think we're similar this way, Monique. It's fun to chat with people, get to know them. And I like to find nuggets about people and subjects. I like to kind of find things that maybe they've never explored before. I try to be too off the wall, but I like to kind of get into stuff that maybe hasn't been discussed. Here's an example. When I had Slade Gore on my show, we talked to the late U.S. Senator from our state. We talked about his career, but we hit on some sports issues, his work on the Mariners issue, his work in bringing Major League Baseball back to Seattle. But I asked him something else. I asked him, Senator, what was the most challenging vote you had in your Senate career? And he brought up in the early 80s, he said the most challenging vote he ever had was the AWAC sale vote. He was getting to Saudi Arabia. He was getting tremendous pressure from Boeing to vote in favor of that. He was getting tremendous pressure from the pro-Israel lobby to vote against it. And those were two constituencies that he was close to. So I thought that was a very interesting answer he gave, that the 1981 Saudi AWAC sale vote was his toughest vote.
Interesting. You are very involved with the Democratic causes and party. Am I right? That's where I met you at some Christmas party some years ago.
Oh, I go to political events now and then, Monique. I don't know if I'm heavily involved. I may contribute to individual candidates, but I don't know right now if I'm that involved.
What do you think about the current, the new administration? Are you happy about that? Are you glad Biden is in office?
Oh, I'm definitely glad Joe Biden's in office. I think he's doing a reasonably good job right now. I mean, a very difficult situation with the coronavirus crisis he inherited. I mean, all sorts of things from the last administration. I think it's sort of a restoration presidency in some ways. Some people compare Biden in certain ways to Gerald Ford, who took over when Nixon resigned. Biden could be a one-term president. He's going to be 82 years old in 2024. But I think he inherited a tough situation. I think the vaccine delivery has been impressive right now from a national standpoint. So I think he's doing a credible job right now.
Well, we're at midpoint to the show, and I wanted to ask Dan, our behind-the-scene producer and technical engineer, to email me the announcement that he wanted me to read at the end of the show, because I can't seem to find it on my email list here. So sorry, Dan. And also a shout out to the behind the scene people. They don't get enough credit for all the work that they do to prepare us for all these live shows. So thank you, Dan and Tony and Karen and Asher, for helping me put together the show for the people of Seattle. You are on Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Monique Lee with the Afternoons with Monique show. Today, I have the pleasure of having Paul Schneiderman, a good friend, fellow civic and charitable cause supporter. He is a personal injury and what's the other thing, Paul?
Oh, I don't know. It's general civil litigation. I've handled some criminal cases over the years too.
Right, and legal analyst. He's also the host for Rainier Avenue Radio Sports and Stuff show. I have the pleasure of co-moderating for a few judicial debates with Paul. So back to the show. Hi, Paul. Welcome back to the second part of the show. So tell me about your legal analyst gig. Did you have a chance to do, what kind of legal cases have you done legal analysis for?
Well, first of all, Monique, I totally agree with you. Our colleagues at Rainier Avenue Radio do a very solid job in helping to put our shows together. So I will concur with your sentiments there. Most of my legal analyst stuff was going on during the Sonics relocation battle in those 2007, 2008 years. I've been subsequently called by some TV and local radio networks to comment on some legalities surrounding sports issues. Those are primarily the issues in the live been asked to analyze on some local networks.
And with the COVID quarantining, what have been going on with the sport world? Give us some ideas. I know your show, how do you sport guests still coming on, talking about these things and updating you?
Oh boy, Monique, that's a good question. I've been doing a lot more shows virtual. I've been having a production gentleman helping me, and I've been submitting them to Rainier Avenue Radio. But there's been some complications, definitely. I'm sort of old school. It's nice to go into a studio and do an interview, but we've definitely entered a different era with this whole coronavirus crisis situation. But yeah, I'm still pulling them off, but doing a lot of them virtually. I have not been in the Rainier Avenue Radio studio in over a year.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like doing this Zoom interviews because it's so convenient, right? Otherwise, I might not.
Yeah, for sure. There's some technology issues that can come up sometimes, like I'm trying to figure out this camera thing, but we're making it work though.
So Paul, what kind of would you be willing to share with the audience some of your legal cases, some stories in the legal arena that you encountered? Entertain us.
Oh gosh, Monique. I mean, I've handled a lot of cases, primarily in the personal injury area, some criminal defense cases. There's always some interesting scenarios that happen. A lot of my goals as an attorney is trying to, I'm looking for decent results. And sometimes getting a good result for a client doesn't involve tons of media attention. For example, I heard an interesting analogy. There was a former Secretary of State was being discussed, and they said that his work as Secretary of State, he was like the lawyer who quietly got good results. So I think that a lot of lawyering, like other professions, a lot of it is, it's not necessarily the yelling and screaming that people see on TV and the movies. A lot of litigation is problem solving.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you to share with us some interesting anecdotes, any trial that you've been on that might be interesting to our audience. But I also want to ask you what you think about some of the interesting cases that we have in town. Like, recently, I mean, I always read these anecdotes. And I have some thoughts, some opinions about them. Like, the last mayor who had to resign out of office, and some political and legal players that was involved. These are very sensitive, but also very interesting subjects for people to hear and to talk about. Do you have any thoughts on these local, recently or past? That with some of the people that we know in common, like, for example, Lincoln Beauregard.
I'm familiar with Lincoln's case. I know Lincoln a bit, not well, but we know each other. We're on a first name basis. We're Facebook friends and so forth. Yeah, I mean I think Lincoln's case against former Mayor Ed Murray, I don't remember all the details, but I think it struck me that the former mayor was in some trouble on a civil case level. I don't think there were any criminal charges that could have been filed against the former mayor. I think that statute of limitations had long passed. But it strikes me that his decision to resign, it kind of sent a sign that his legal case, I think, had some trouble. I believe the case subsequently settled. But Lincoln's a good attorney, and I remember he filed a defamation case against the former mayor. I think he accused the mayor of defaming his client.
Really?
He was very creative lawyering what Lincoln did in that case. I know anyhow. So I don't remember all the details, but I'll share those points just mentioned to you.
Well, the generation that you and I and Lincoln were in, there's some interesting people, there's some talented people, and of course, I like to keep track of, these people and see what they're up to and what they're doing, like what you're doing, what he's doing, and some other people. So, when I have a chance, I always want to know what people, like you, think of these things.
Well, Lincoln's a little fancier than I am as a lawyer, so
what's that again?
Lincoln's a little fancier as a lawyer than I am, but anyhow.
Well, he's with maybe we'll get him on the show at some point.
That I think he'd be an interesting guest to chat with for sure.
Right. So we're heading toward the last part of the show. I wanted to take this opportunity to see if there's anything that you would like to share or to talk about project that you're working on. With this COVID quarantining, a lot of lawyers friends tells me that they tell me they're very busy, even busier than before. Isn't that interesting how that works? How are you doing with the law practice?
Oh, I always have stuff to do. I think a lot of this is a national thing. I think a lot of personal injury cases have been down the last year in general. Part of it, which is kind of a good problem, is there's less people on the roads, which can be a good problem. So, there's always work to do. I've been pretty busy. Like almost all practicing attorneys, you're always wondering when the next case is going to come in. But been pretty busy, and there's always room for improvement too.
Oh, well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're trying to promote this 3-day Earth Day from the station. So I'm going to read a request announcement by the station, which I found Dan had sent out. Okay, so Earth Day deserves more than a day. So we have events from April 20th to 22nd during this show, which I have, there is a flyer to this event. Dan, can you pull that flyer up so the audience can see? Well, I'll keep talking until there you go. All right, maybe a little bit bigger. Okay, well, there's the event list, but if you want to see more details and click on some links, so there you go. Now we can read it. Go to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is the lineup, and today is Thursday, April 22nd, and we have lineup all the way to 7 p.m. tonight to promote Earth Day, and there's what is this? Hosting of the Best Darts for Kids Summit on April 26th to the 30th that I would like to also mention. So the audience, you have any interest in sending your kids to the Kids Summit, you should go to Rainier Avenue radio.world and check out and register your children to this summit. So that we're heading to the last stretch of the show. Paul, are you still there with me?
I'm still here, Monique, listening very carefully.
Okay, all right. Well, before we leave the audience, is there any last parting words you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I will share a couple words for a second. Let people pursue your dreams, pursue what you're interested in, and find something you enjoy. And don't be afraid to be a little outside the box. For attorneys, there's different ways of practicing law. And one advice I also give to young attorneys is, I'm 50 now, I'm not that young anymore, is, find some other niches. If you enjoy rowing or enjoy sewing or enjoy traveling, it's okay to have other interests. And so I'm a big believer in people not being discouraged in pursuing their dreams. And it doesn't mean you're going to be top. Like I have to play tennis. Am I the top player? Of course not. But enjoy yourself. You don't have to be perfect to enjoy yourself either, and do good work and have a good life.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Are you still playing tennis? We were supposed to go play tennis, one summer, a couple of years ago, but we never actually hit any tennis ball. Have we?
Well, we can try to pull it off sometime. Yeah, I'm not the top player or anything, but yeah, let's do it sometime.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we went to the tennis court, but there was no open courts at the club, so we couldn't play that day. But yeah, I would love that. All right. Well, this is the Afternoons with Monique show on Rainier Avenue Radio, and I have Paul Schneiderman, attorney, litigator, judicial moderator of show, and sport radio show host for Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio on my show today. Next week, we will have Judge Dave Lawson of the Federal Way Municipal Court judge coming on our show to share with us about how he does justice in Federal Way. So I can't wait to hear some of the things that he will share with our audience. Judge Lawson contested the judicial the Supreme Court position. I believe it was 6-3 against incumbent Justice Montoya Lewis last October. And I think you and I, Paul, had the pleasure of moderating that debate. Did we do that?
We did. I thought it was actually a very fascinating debate.
Yeah, I think he was a great candidate, but Justice Montoya Lewis won that election, so he'll be on my show next week at 1:00 on Thursday, the 29th. So everyone tune in and take a listen next week. Looking forward to connecting with you again next Thursday. Thank you, Paul, for coming on. Good afternoons with Monique. And next on Rainier Avenue Radio is Shatter Your Glass Ceiling show. So stay tuned. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Monique. I enjoyed it.